And I think at this stage, we need to go to the next level of the identity. How do we know there are witches? I often ask people, I say, how do we know a witch? So some of you probably have many ways in which you can identify a witch. Now, number one, it is a long-held belief. You talk to Africans, they say, our ancestors have always believed in it. So the argument is that this belief on witchcraft belief has been passed down from generation to generation. My grandfather believed it, my father and mother believe it, and I also must believe it. I'm sure that Africans, we've heard that this is a belief that has been entrenched in the psyche of the people, especially Africans. From childhood, we know, we believe, we are taught, and it's deeply entrenched in our psyche. And one time I dared to question this belief, and one student said to me, "Sir, you are white on the inside and black on the outside." And they said, "How can you be an African without believing in witchcraft?" Well, I said, well, I mean, just because I'm an African doesn't mean that I cannot ask questions of things that are thrown at me. But it's important to know that belief is hard to destroy. The famous physicist Albert Einstein noted that it is easier to destroy an atom than a belief. Can I say that again? He said it is easier to destroy an atom than a belief. That's to show that these beliefs that have been passed on to us, on witchcraft in particular, they are hard to eradicate. And even when we become Christians, that belief persists even among Christians. So it is a long-held belief. The second one is confessions and stories are convincing evidence of the existence of witchcraft. So when I ask, how do you know, or how can you recognize a witch? I say, confessions. People confess here and there that they are witches. And so some people have confessed to being witches for causing suffering and misfortune, such as barrenness, miscarriages, sickness, bad luck. All these things are there. And so when we have those confessions that are made, we say, he confessed. I mean, what else do you want? If the person has confessed, it's okay. And see, these confessions are made, and they are retold and enlarged. They are elaborated. In Nigeria, we say, these stories, they put salt, they put all kind of things to make it sweeter so that they are more palatable. And they are there. And in fact, in some instances, they will even tell you what happened during the witchcraft, the killing of a person, that they ate the kidneys, they destroyed the heart, they used the human parts. So these confessions are there. And when people are told, they say, that's it. Because they confess, it must be that witchcraft exists or it happened the way it did. And then another area that people will say they know witchcraft exists is diseases that have no medical cure, unexplained or natural occurrences of evil. Some diseases do not respond to cures, can easily be said to be proof of work of witchcraft. Some of these include HIV and AIDS, Ebola, epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, polio, diabetes, hypertension, hepatitis B, sickle cell anemia, cancers, and many others. If I was talking to my doctor, he said, well, you can have two people that have broken bones. One may join, and the other one may not join. How do you explain that? The African believes that the one that refused to join is the work of witchcraft. There's probably a witch in the family who has caused that bone not to join. And a woman who has suffered miscarriages over and over, and it will be believed to be witchcraft. Infant mortality or even barrenness is easily accused of being a witch. Parents who lose their children, especially in adulthood, one after the other is accused of witchcraft. I have a woman back in Nigeria who lost 7 out of her 10 children within a space of 3 years. I mean, that was proof that she must have caused it. And we have it there. My maternal aunt, who lost 9 out of her 10 children, was accused of being a witch. A chain of evil occurrences are often a clue to witchcraft in many African beliefs. And then we have physical features. This is kind of funny. Some people will think that you know a witch by the way he looks. Maybe the set of teeth, maybe he has a bald head, the way he looks, the way he blinks. It is believed that he is a witch. Red eyes, crooked nose, long nose, protruding head, unusual set of tooth could be a sign that the person is a witch. Another area thing is that if somebody is living alone in an isolated area all by himself, is a sign that he must be a witch. And or somebody crying at night, not showing adequate sorrow at the death of a relative. So if you have a relative that dies and you don't really cry, you could be accused of witchcraft. And if you are mean-looking or you are always beating your wife or your children, it could be associated to witchcraft. My nephew had a habit of blinking his eyes. And they told his father, my brother, that his son was probably involved in witchcraft. That's why he was always blinking. Dreams and revelations and visions. In many African societies, dreams were taken very seriously. That in dreams and visions, that God was showing the community what was going to happen. And so in the society, if, for example, it was revealed to somebody that this person was a witch, it was believed that it was witchcraft. So dreams, revelations, and dreams are never taken lightly. You dream that you saw somebody attacking you with a knife. Oh, that is huge. And usually you have the community coming together to discuss it, especially the elders. There are certain activities, for example, in a dream that are taken to be a sign that you are that you are a witch. For example, if you are eating meat in a dream, it's an indication that you are a witch. Or you see yourself flying in a dream, it's an indication that you are a witch, or something bad is going to happen. And so all these things are there to prove that there is witchcraft. Witch doctors, diviners, and spiritual leaders identify witches too. In all African societies, we had priests, we had diviners. Here you have them sangomas, and all of this, they were there. And we had like the charlatans and the kundi in Togo, the Izena, Dibia in Igbo of Nigeria, the Boka, as Hausa of Nigeria, and then we have the Babalao among the Yorubas, we have the Vok among my own people, and the Sangomas, the special people. These diviners, witch doctors, are believed to be able to find out the causes and cures for impotence, barrenness, constant miscarriages, political failures, and so on. They were there. I'm able to deal with this very easily because my grandfather was a witch doctor, and I used to watch him play. So, and they play an important role, and even up to date, they do that. The second, another group of people are the evangelists and ministers and preachers. In Africa, the men and women of God are able to detect witches, especially from my country, Nigeria. I think they come here, that they'll say, they will look in the congregation and say, yeah, that person is a witch, is a wizard. They're able to do that. And as a matter of fact, the deliverance ministry has become huge, that these evangelists and preachers, they come to a place, have an open crusade, and they identify witches. In Nigeria, they come to South Africa, they are all over the place, they are able to. I have often said that some of these evangelists, they've just changed their jerseys from traditional ministry or work as witches, and then they've just put the jerseys of Christian ministers. But they are part of the problem of transmitting this belief in witchcraft. And then, of course, as I said, even among Christians, we say that the Bible also talks about witchcraft. Allow the witch not to live is a proof. In fact, last year I went to the United Nations to present a paper on witchcraft, and I happened to put a post on witchcraft. And so somebody quoted that passage that, yeah, the Bible does talk about witchcraft, and there are witches all over the place. And so when he talked to Christians, said, yeah, but the Bible talks about witchcraft. And so we would interact more with that as we go on, but it's usually a problem. Now, as we look at all these ways in which people say there are witches, I'd like to emphasize here that that there are a group of people that are more vulnerable to accusation. Again, my interest is not really on the practice, but more on the belief and the accusation. Now, some of the persons that are involved in, that are often accused, are widows. When a woman has lost her husband, she becomes vulnerable. And they are often attacked, accused, beaten, because they think that they believe that they had a hand in the death of their husband. And if a man dies, the first accuser is usually the widow of the deceased. In fact, in many communities that I know, quite a number of communities, I should say, that I know, when a husband dies, they ask, there's always a ritual. They wash the corpse of the husband, and then they ask the widow to drink to prove that she is innocent. They believe that if she drinks the water from the corpse, if she didn't die, that shows that she's innocent. But if she becomes sick or she dies, it's proof. And I have so many stories of what has been done. And they shave their head, and they have to wear black for weeks. Sometimes they force them to drink poison to prove that. And it's still going on. In Nigeria, the DRC, the widows are always at risk of being accused and severely punished for the death of their husbands. Parents of deceased also are often accused of a witchcraft. My maternal aunt, she had children, and all of them died, and her husband died. And so a few years ago, she was attacked for being a witch that was responsible for the death and all the bad misfortune, all the bad things that happen in the family. So parents of the deceased are always vulnerable to these attacks. In fact, during the death of my daughter, my senior brother confessed that, thank God for Christianity, and thank God that I am a Christian and a pastor. He said he would have been attacked because he's the surviving eldest brother in the family. He would have been attacked that he knew something. And so it often happens that parents of the deceased are attacked. Another group of people are the elderly people. You have somebody who has lived for 70 years, 80 years, 90 years. They will attack them. Say, why is that all persons still alive? And all her children, all these things have died. And so it's a problem that elderly people, in fact, there are many instances I can quote that have been killed because they were the most elderly people left in the family. And especially, when somebody is so old, they cannot walk, they don't see, and all this and that. And so when death, sickness or misfortune happens, they usually point accusing fingers. Children, and especially the orphans, are often accused. Young children, as young as 5 years old, I've known to be accused that they are responsible for this, and it's horrible. When you look at orphans, those who have lost their parents, accused of witchcraft, and they cannot defend themselves. We have also elderly men. Elderly women, Elderly women in some places are they are more vulnerable to this accused. There are some societies, in fact, that believe that only women can be witches. Women are not. And in fact, even the translation of the Bible, they translate, thou shalt not allow a female witch to live. And so elderly women are often accused of witchcraft, and it's there, and it's terrible. And sometimes, not often, that wealthy people in a community could be accused. That if you are more wealthy than others in the community, you are accused of witchcraft. I have the chief of my own people, the Baju people. He lost 2 sons out of 3 and a daughter within a space of 3 years. One of his sons was actually murdered. An assassin shot him dead. And he was accused of using witchcraft to kill his own children. So when I talked to him, he said, they accused me. They say, well, I use witchcraft to kill my children so that I can become chief. It's not common though, but there are times that wealthy people are accused. And so a closer look at the identities of people accused of witchcraft clearly shows that they are all vulnerable and incapable of defending themselves. The widower, the orphan, children, and the bereaved who have suffered great losses are major targets of witchcraft accusations. Accusing fingers are pointed at them from all directions. They are rejected, they are scorned by the community, even though they cannot defend themselves. When these false accusations are reported to the police, I tell you, I mean, because the police also come from this belief in witchcraft. Many times they are avoided. And even among Christians, that they find these people accused. And they will give you all these reasons that they know, they confess, it's our belief. It was revealed in a dream, and the Sangoma or the witch doctor pointed that. And find even in Christian communities that is happening. And I think it's a problem. We will look at these various ways of identifying witches and then try to respond briefly on the items as I have presented them.